It's like trying to win a car race.
Should be a good one.
And as you're driving, saying, hey, make it run better.
You could have a posse of waifus.
Starting off kind of strangely.
Slaying the land.
Welcome to the show.
This is insanity.
Taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week.
This info is pretty shocking.
Somebody's got to give an answer to this.
This is Augmented Reality.
You are watching my favorite channel.
I've not heard of them.
The Triple S League. Enjoy, guys.
Hey everybody, welcome to Augmented Reality for January 26th, 2022. Taking a critical look at games in the gaming industry. This is Ash Ryan with you, and I'm here as always with Subsidian and Moontag. And we are going to be looking at the news of the week and engaging with you in the live chat. If you are watching us live today on the live stream here on Triple S Podcasts, do say hello in the live chat. Send us your questions and comments there as well. We'll respond to as many as we can throughout the podcast. And don't forget to slam that like button. Likes are rough, and it tells us in YouTube that you appreciate this content. Of course, you can listen after the fact whenever you want, and if you are doing that, we welcome your comments in the comments area down below. We love hearing from you. A few of you like to post really in-depth comments, which we do read, I promise. We just, lots of great thoughts from you folks. We really, we don't have time to respond to every comment, but we do love reading them. So, news that should probably excite some of you. New Crysis game, Crysis 4. What do you guys think of that?
I love their announcement trailer was just a bunch of particle effects going off. And,
yeah. Yeah, we've got that on their Twitter feed.
And they're like, hey, you're going to be able to see this in ultra up close effects when you play the game.
I mean, this is even they're giving Obsidian a run for their money. They're not even showing the hero that has you don't see their face or hear their name because they haven't been created yet. So anyway, Crysis 4, long way off. Don't get too hyped. I mean, get a little hyped, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. This age of I'm beyond hype in games. It's like, oh, okay, cool. New game in a series is coming. I will, I'll get excited when it's close to release and when I can see that it looks like it's going to be a good game. Other than that, I just, there's too much to focus on in the here and now for me to get hyped about a game that's so far off. But obviously, a much loved series that I'm sure a lot of people are going to be excited about this game. But yeah, there's literally nothing here. There's just, cool effects and all, cool video, but it tells us nothing about the game. Absolutely nothing about the game. And then let's see here. So a couple of other small stories before we jump into the big stuff today, which is of course Star Wars. There's lots of Star Wars coming, and then we have some news about Blizzard and some news about Blizzard that doesn't have to do with scandals, and then some news about some stuff about Bioware and some discussion, some interesting discussion items that I think you'll find interesting. Funky says, actually, the real question is, will it support the GPU for the NFT mining? Yeah, that's the question that you have to ask about every game these days, hey?
Yep.
Yeah, pretty much.
You should also mention that Discord is currently down.
Yeah.
And so our audio is a little bit off today because we're doing this through another thing, which isn't that great. But yeah, so this is what happens when Discord just suddenly dies. 40 minutes before I think it was 30 minutes before the show started. It's like I looked online and I was like, that's funny. All the people that were in the chat rooms last night at 2 p.m. are still in those chat rooms.
I was still wondering about that.
Yeah.
So it was like frozen in place.
Yeah, it's
That's
frozen. Weird. You can sort of you can do things. You could jump around into certain channels, but you couldn't actually you couldn't actually do anything.
That's weird. No one would respond to you or anything. So there's going to be when this clears up, there's going to be a flood of messages and people saying, "Why is no one responding to me?" Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's an API outage right now, so we'll see what happens after a little while.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's really weird. So like 2 minutes before the show starts, I'm freaking out because no sign of Cyber Moon yet. So I call Cyber and he's like, oh, yeah, I'm getting us onto this other system. Hang on. Anyway, speaking of stuff going really weird, how's that for a segue? So a game developer believes that a real-life weapons manufacturer has stolen the design for its weapon. The game developer is Ward B, working on a game called Oceanic, which I've never heard of. I don't know anything about, but apparently they've created, some weapons that are true to the lore of their game. And this one called the Mastodon Shotgun. This was Notional that posted this topic. I remember that. So this Mastodon Shotgun, Kalashnikov, basically they approached the game developer to say, hey, we want to make like a real life version of this. And the game dev was like, okay, we'll let's get the contracts moving on it. Never heard anything back. And then suddenly Kalashnikov has this weapon out that looks very much like the Mastodon Shotgun from the game. And then Kalashnikov licensed the use of this weapon to another game. So it's a very weird situation, and the dev has actually, if I go back to normal view here, I can show you. This is from IGN Africa, which is interesting. I didn't even know there was an IGN Africa. So basically, there's a bunch of comparisons that they put online, and it comes down. I guess it's like, at what point is it a copy, and at what point is it just inspired by? I guess that's the legal question here, right? Because it's not exactly the same, but it's got features that are like specific to the design of the gun in the game world.
Yeah,
that some of them got transferred over to this real world gun, and also it's very suspicious that the gun manufacturer had approached them and then just cut off communications. So very odd situation. But what really made me sad was this sentence here. No, hang on. Where is it? Basically, the dev. If the game developer decided to, the small game developer taking a giant weapons manufacturer to court, even if they have an airtight case, it could destroy them financially. And that's a sad state of affairs that we live in.
Well, I mean, we've been here before. Lots and lots and lots of times, but like ZeniMax back in the day, when they wanted the Fallout IP, they sued Interplay, or they made a deal with Interplay to have it. They said, yeah, okay, you guys can make an online game. We're going to make Fallout 3, 4, and 5. And that was their plan. But then 3 sold so well and boosted their stock so high that ZeniMax said, it's like that meme where the dog is like, he's looking at the thing, and then he's like, I made this. This is mine. I created this. I created all of this. And Interplay suddenly gets hit with this lawsuit where it's like, oh, we heard you're working on a Fallout game. Yeah, according to our deal. Well, the deal was for you to make an MMO called Fallout. We didn't think you'd have anything to do with the universe of Fallout. Therefore, you're in breach of contract, and we're suing to own the license. And they're like, this is ridiculous. They're like, well, see you in court, buddy. So they took it to the first court, and ZeniMax lost. Then they took it to the second court, and they lost again. Then they took it to the third court, I think, and they lost again. And then it was during their fourth court, again, where like ZeniMax had lost every step of the way. It was completely laughed out of court. The only thing that it wasn't done is it wasn't dismissed with prejudice. And therefore, they just kept on taking it up the chain. um, and basically just like they sued them over and over and over again to the point where the people at Interplay couldn't afford to continue fighting, and they had to settle, and they got some cash out of it to basically make it so that they didn't go broke, and then that was it. That was the thing. And then they couldn't use the IP. They couldn't use anything that was reminiscent of the IP, period, end of story. And then they kind of ran it, and then Interplay kind of ran into the ground after that. So it's like, oh, okay. So if you have a big enough cash balance in your wallet, you can basically sue somebody, and the legislation is the problem. And we've been here because there was a story that we can't get into where we went to some lawyers and said, so here's what's happening. It's a travesty. It's a very bad thing that's happening. It's a bad thing that's happening that's going on in behind the scenes. We know the truth, and we can say it. And the guys looked at us and said, okay, so here's what we've figured out. The company that you're gonna, that you would whistleblow about has a history of like just absolutely crushing people with lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. They said that the one company filed some 30 some odd lawsuits against one party, and each of the lawsuits were different. Like they were things from like frivolous things to aggressive things, and he says that because there's some interesting law stuff going on here, so there's nothing you can do about it. You'd have to defend yourself against each case. And he says you might be lucky, and in most cases you'll win your lawyer fees. He says, but the 1 out of the 10 that you don't will cost you more than what you own right now. And then they'll just continue hitting you with these things unless you can get a high court to basically counter sue them on your behalf, to say that this is a frivolous thing, and that doesn't really go over very well. So it's the punishment. The punishment isn't the fact that they win any of these cases, it's that they make your life a living hell, and you'd have to continue to do this all the time. And so we had to walk away from the story because it was like, well, what can we do? Like, we're just small fry people, and we can't go up against a $1 billion company. So yeah, stuff like this happens all the time.
Yeah.
And Kalashnikov is a massive company that has extremely deep pockets and connections with some very unsavory folks.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll say it. Kalashnikov, again, they can't, they don't officially control where any of their weapons go, but it is kind of funny that a lot of the unsavory elements in the world do get their hands on a lot of Kalashnikov type weapons. I'm gonna look this up because I'm pretty sure Kalashnikov makes the AK-47, right?
I have no idea. I had no idea we were going to get this deep into this topic, but yeah, it's a sad state of affairs.
Yeah. Kalashnikov makes the AK-47. The AK-47 I think it's the most common weapon in the entire world, and it finds its way in the millions into hands of people who make really bad things. We'll just say that. And again, it's not that Kalashnikov is openly supporting them, but it is weird where it's like, your weapons end up in the hands of people in the millions, and yeah, a lot of that is secondhand, but some of it's not. So it's kind of weird.
Funky says Apple's been doing this for years, looking at small bugs and reproducing.
Yeah.
And
I probably should use them as an example.
Speaking of Apple, so they're reportedly possibly working on a console and have been snatching developers away or engineers away from Microsoft, supposedly to make that happen, according to Windows Central writer Jez Corden, who was on, shared some info on the Xbox 2 podcast, and admits that his sourcing isn't great on this particular rumor. But anyway, he says he's been hearing for a while that Apple has been poaching Xbox engineers to make its own console. I've heard that for ages, that Apple was exploring making a video game console, and I don't know if it's going to be a VR play or a metaverse thing or something like that, but some of the engineers that Apple's poached from Microsoft were because they wanted to explore making their own console. So, just a rumor at this point, but Saib, you said this rumor's popped up before.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's popped up for the last year or two.
Well, Apple, I don't know if how many of you are aware that Apple actually made a console at one point, the Pippin, and it was one of the biggest flops in history of Apple products. It was just they were actually, in some ways, they were trying to be ahead of their time by making it be sort of an expansive multimedia device, not just like something you plug a game into and play. But it apparently tried to do too many things and wasn't very good at any of them. So, yeah, that's the Pippin. But anyway, so...
Well, that's also the last generation of Xbox. That's why they failed so hard.
Right, yeah. And this was way back in the this was in the PlayStation 1 N64 era. So that was a long time ago. Anyway, so how much truth do you think there is to this rumor of Apple pursuing making a console? I would actually be I'd be very surprised if they weren't at least exploring the idea, personally.
Well, basically, with the announcement that Google is going to be bringing a game app to the PC that will allow you to play all of the games on the Apple Store on any PC. With that announcement, basically what we're looking at here is we're looking at this thing where it's like they're and hopefully this might make... I say this optimistically. This is my most optimistic statement of the year. Hopefully, by bringing these games to the PC, more people will be turned off by the microtransactions and tell them to, WTF, get them sorted out, and microtransactions on these mobile games will become less predatory. That is my most optimistic statement of the decade, honestly. It's probably the most optimistic statement I have ever said. And I frankly think that it's more likely that, I'll start spitting up gold tomorrow than to have that happen.
That would be pretty optimistic.
But yeah, so what we're seeing here really is that there is obviously a lot of money to be made in this, and I think Apple realizes that if they can create essentially a device that functions as a console that allows you to play all their mobile games on that thing, and then have it seamlessly transition from your phone to your TV to the console to whatever. I think they realize that that's probably worth a lot of money. And they're probably going to hit it, they're probably going to go for it. And I think that, again, because they're realizing that they're looking at Google, they're looking at Microsoft, they're looking at these other companies, and they're realizing, we got to get our game together. We can't just, we've got to get this stuff moving or we're going to fail. And I think that's true, because what we've seen here from this whole recent, buyout of Blizzard by Microsoft is that, and it's not just Microsoft, it's Tencent, it's Embracer Group. These companies are gobbling up the entertainment sides because video games are now far more profitable than any other entertainment medium in the world. It's they're going to make moves on this stuff, and we're going to see the same thing. We're going to see a little bit of a gold rush here in the sense of if you've got a reasonably like decent studio and you're pumping out games, somebody's going to approach you to try and buy you out, because they're going to need, they need more titles, they need more things, they need more stuff. So we are going to see this kind of like transition. And the thing I would say to that is that I wouldn't worry about that so much. There's a lot of people who are like, we don't want these megacorps forming up, and it's like that's true in most scenarios. It's true, but gaming has always been centered around creative individuals who start small projects in their garage. Like, I mean, it's always been that way, and it's getting more and more like that. 20 years ago, that was a story of a handful of developers making a handful of games that then became major studios, But now you have hundreds and thousands of these developers creating small projects in the closet or in their garage, and we're seeing them get massive success. And we've talked to a lot of these we've talked to a lot of these indie developers. We've interviewed a couple of them, and there are things that the big mega corporations aren't going to touch because they're going to be afraid to. And the particular game that we interviewed, I'll say the name, Subverse. We interviewed the guys at Subverse mostly because we're interested in free speech, and we don't necessarily support the game in the content that it brings, but we support the right for it to exist and the importance to stimulate conversation. And I don't think Apple's going to show up. I don't think Apple, Embracer Group, Tencent, Microsoft, Sony, none of those guys are going to show up and buy these guys out. Right?
No, they're not. But there's a lot of good stuff. There's also a lot of good stuff that's not as edgy and pushing.
Yeah, but I'm saying that there's an insulation layer in video gaming where we'll see these crazy big projects come out, become very popular, and build up these new studios, and the big dogs won't touch them. And a great example of this is actually Blizzard, because for a while, sure, they got bought up by Bobby, for pocket change back in the day. But when they made Diablo 1, there was a fair amount of nudity in Diablo 1 because they were edgy teenage guys, like barely out of college guys, and they were like boobish, booba, like put them everywhere, and they were into that kind of thing. And big corporations at the time that this game came out wasn't that, like, they weren't going to touch that IP. They all kind of shrunk back from it. And we can't do that. Well, now who just got bought out for $70 billion, right? It's like, trust me, guys, when it comes to the ecology and the environment of video games, it's like, in the way that things are set up now, with the way that engines are being, are easier and easier to create larger and larger scale games with fewer and fewer people, we're going to get to that point where I don't think we have to worry about all games being owned by mega corporations. I really don't think that that's going to happen because of the ecosystem that is growing, and they'd have to make all of those companies would have to work together to make a conservative push to crush indie gaming, which would directly basically crush whatever they're doing. And again, is counter to what they want, because a lot of the big titles that show up on these game stores, especially Apple's store and especially Google's Play Store, most of those big high earners start out as small indie developers making a single game, and all you have to do is look at Flappy Bird, Candy Crush, and these other ones. It's like all those games started out as just like one guy making a thing. So,
right.
yeah.
But again, yes, the gaming industry is never gonna gaming will not survive without the indie gaming space, because that's where the real innovation and pushing the boundaries is happening.
And even if somebody has to build something from scratch, it'll still end up getting more success, because all it takes is like one person to create something that's new, cool, different, and interesting, which is what entertainment is completely about. It's like when one of the things that made Rome fall was the lack of new entertainment for the Romans, and you know, they were so unhappy that they let the system crash around them because they wanted to be entertained, and the whole system crashing around them was far more entertaining than the stupid entertainment that they had just seen for the 5th time in the row that week.
Yeah, because like one of the things that happens when you get these corporations or groups that get like really big is they kind of get stuck into like a formula that worked for them before, so they just keep doing it. And so it makes sense for them to try to pick up these like smaller like outreaches where they can inject themselves with an influx of new ideas if they're so inclined to do so. There's actually a conversation in the chat I've been following where IX asks, what was it? Oh, it was up here. Don't get why Apple hasn't made any gaming-related hardware. They have some great engineers at Apple. And Funky was replying, the general Apple audience was not gamers. Now anyone's a gamer to a certain extent. And mentioning that, yes, mobile gaming may be huge for them, but the people who own the desktop Macs don't see their hardware as gaming. So that's also something to consider, because like I had to do the thing like when I was getting like a laptop for schooling, where I was like, okay, which kind of laptop would make more sense to me? Like I want to get an Apple one because I heard it's really good for like Photoshop and like artistic things and general media, but just the versatility of the PC and the familiarity with growing up using a PC kind of won me over.
Yes, well, that is where Apple is very much kind of a walled garden in that aspect. I mean, if you go over to the Apple side, and I will never go back to iPhone for this reason, because you have to be willing to upgrade on their schedule, have your hardware become obsolete on their schedule, and well, I think you Apple hardware is more gaming friendly than it once was. It's still not. I mean, it's not their strength, right? They do have Apple does have a strength in the fact that all of their stuff just works together seamlessly. So there's an advantage there in some sense, but yeah, that's at the cost of flexibility. So that's why I'm a PC person, and switched from iPhone to Android and won't go back, even though I have my issues with Google as well. But speaking of which, this kind of leads us to our main story about the Star Wars games that are coming up. But whoops, that's the wrong thing. Just since we were talking about Blizzard, I'll just mention Blizzard's working on a new IP, and this is not sort of an official announcement in the sense of, hey, we're making a new IP, but this is a recruitment effort. They're looking for developers they're looking for people to come on board and build this world, basically. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that would, here's all of the positions they're looking to hire for.
I've done some snooping. So I've done some snooping on this. So I've been hearing there's a handful of projects that were ongoing at Blizzard, and Bobby didn't want the sale to go through to Microsoft, because he had a couple of things in the pipeline that he thought were winners. And he does know when a good product is there. Now, he's been bad recently at managing these. There's a bunch of Overwatch developers came out and lambasted Bobby in the press and on Twitter the other day, saying that it's because of your arrogant, bad leadership that caused us to delay and caused all these problems with Overwatch and Overwatch 2. So, so there's, he's having some problems. But one of the problems that I don't think they had was that some of their new game ideas weren't necessarily bad. Now, I said ideas, I didn't say product, because they've been dropping the ball on finished products recently, and that's part of the problem. That's part of the reason why, yes, the buyout of Blizzard is a good thing, because it literally can't get worse. Like I have stopped playing and touching any Blizzard products for well over a year now, basically almost nearly a year now, completely. And I'm just done with it. I'm just done with them. And so, yeah, any change is better. Any move to a new owner is better. But what I've been hearing from in the grapevine is what a bunch of other people have also said. So I can say this without getting in too much trouble. A lot of projects at Blizzard are available to play for the staff themselves. So they want feedback. They want, people. So instead of going home and going to play, some other game, they go up to the test wing and they try out some of these other new games. This game in particular, again, multiple other people are reporting this now. This is the most popular game inside Blizzard. People can't get enough of it. It's super fun to play. And the excitement around this project is extremely high. And notice that what they're looking for. So they're looking for environmental artists. So they're not, you could say that they're looking to improve their environments, not creating them from scratch. Senior character artist, you can never have enough of those, because costumes, characters, new designs, stuff like that. Like that's all pretty, just like all the big games right now, that are like, you pop on and play constantly. They're constantly updating their stuff. There's new skins every week, that kind of stuff. Technical artists, VFX artists, senior character concept artists. So again, that's just creating more and more and more different styles, different looks, different costumes, different gear, that kind of stuff. Associate level designer, another level designer, basically. And again, these are like, they just need more areas, they need more designs, they need more creative things to do, places to do them. And then you've got a whole bunch of software engineers for audio, server, tools, and engine. So they're looking for people who can up the quality as far as the engineering side. So this game has been in the works for probably a little over 2 years. They're probably nailing it. And what I mean by nailing it is this is a survival game. Can anybody name a AAA super polished survival game with top end graphics? The closest thing we have is Fallout 76. That's the closest thing we have to a survival game that has, state-of-the-art graphics, state-of-the-art system, state-of-the-art everything. And it's not. 76 is not a AAA experience in that category, I would say. Valheim
depends on
not.
What definition of AAA are you using? Budget size?
Again, I just went through that. Graphics, fidelity, systems, interaction.
Well,
that
right, okay, like AAA
everything.
level. Okay, yeah,
AAA level. Valheim is not AAA level. They're just slightly above indie, because the graphics are terrible. The clipping is terrible. The again, I'm not saying that it's a bad game. It's a good game, but it's not AAA quality, because again, you can as much as what you can do in the game is great and amazing and is very smart. it's not polished to a triple A level. It's not. It doesn't. Visually, it's not. That great. It's like, it's from the graphics are like what, 10, 15 years old, basically.
On Valheim? I don't think so. But I mean, I see your point.
Yeah.
10 to 15 years is a long time. You go back that, you're
Okay,
talking like Portal 2
like
level
8
graphics
years.
then.
It's not great. The graphics are, now again, because it's such a huge world, the graphics can't be that great, because the minute that you start adding in 4K textures, or even, well, 4K is a little ridiculous. The minute you start adding in 1K textures, so like 1080p essentially, the game becomes very difficult to run. I mean, that's the same for most most MMOs. They do suffer from not being able to have that super high level. So what happens in 76's case is that you can't have more than like 15 people on a map at any given time. And also, there's a limit as to, like, you can't dig into the ground. You can't do that stuff. It's not voxel based, that kind of problem. Anytime you include some voxel stuff, you have some minor issues. Maybe No Man's Sky might be considered a survival game. I mean, they do have a hardcore option, so that's actually, I would say that's probably the best bet. But again, it's not quite the same thing, because again, you're not on a world with 100 other people. You're on a world by yourself, essentially, typically, and maybe a friend if you call them in. You can get the games where there's dozens of people on a map, but again, there's still limitations around that, and what you can do, and how that can affect the world, and all that kind of stuff. So I think the open door for a AAA survival game is one of the few genres that doesn't have multiple AAA developers working and creating something top notch. I really don't think that you have that. Again, you might be able to say No Man's Sky, you might be able to say 76, and then that's about it as far as AAA. Valheim, again, great systems in general, not super polished. It doesn't have the biggest complaint from Valheim is that it doesn't have enough content. There's not enough things to do in the game. Once you beat the 5 bosses, I mean, that's it. That's the end of the hard boss mechanic challenges. Now, are they coming out with some more stuff? Sure, maybe. Well, I mean, sure, they are working on new stuff. But again, we don't have a game that looks like Overwatch, that plays as smoothly as a very smooth game, which I can't think of one off the top of my head, that has the interactability of basically like Skyrim or Fallout with a voxel based system. You just don't have any of that kind of stuff coming from a AAA developer, again, with maybe the exception of No Man's Sky, but it's still not really AAA. And there's some other issues with the game, and it's kind of.
You think this is what we're looking for, or looking at in this new Blizzard
I think,
IP, though?
From what I'm hearing, and from what other people are hearing, and from what everybody else is reporting on this, that's in the know space. So like Bellular knows a lot of developers. Yesterday he came out and confirmed what some other people were saying, because he said, well, it's now out there, so I can talk about this. He couldn't talk about it before because they would be able to figure out who was talking about it. But now that the announcement's out, he's not dishing any inside goods. He's just saying that this is a really good game internally right now, and it's probably one of the best Blizzard games that they've had in the last, it's the best content that Blizzard has had in the last 10 years.
Interesting.
Says the internal excitement about this game right now is way higher than Overwatch was when it was in the same early stages. So again, what does this mean? Well, we're not going to get this anytime soon. I would say that at the absolute earliest, we would see like a kind of like an early access thing a year from now. That's really pushing it. I think that this and I think one of the reasons for the buyout and why Bobby couldn't rally his defenders is that he said, but we have this really good game. It's a survival game. It's coming. It's looking really good. And the board looked at him and said, yeah, but it's not going to be out for a few more years, and we're not interested in chancing that you'll be able to get everything under control and rebuild and give us our profits back. We don't want to wait 3 years for that when we can shell out for the exact same worth right now, selling out to Microsoft. Then, because again, they like, even if Blizzard managed to crawl its way back up to $95 a stock, which is only happening now because of the buyout. Before, that wasn't going to happen. Like, that they were on track for maybe getting there in like 2 to 3 years from now. Again, that's if Diablo, Overwatch 2, and this new game all came out spectacularly. Then they'd maybe get up back to that $100 level.
But when you have the brain drain that you've had, the talent drain that you've had at the company, and when you have a company that's wrapped up in scandals, I have to also think you would have a hell of a time recruiting for this if they hadn't just announced, like, if the news cycle had not shifted from, Blizzard's erupted in scandals to, hey, Blizzard just got bought by Microsoft.
Yeah, I think that's why we're seeing this now, is because this is, this has gotten good. Yeah. So, I mean, I have to think that they're far more likely to fill these positions with quality people now than they would have 2 weeks ago. I think it makes a huge amount of difference there. Funky, no, that's exactly what I'm saying. Like Kotick was not, he didn't want them to sell out because he thought that he could get things back on track and get everything profitable again, within the next couple of years. And that's what he was trying to push for, like, trust me, board of directors, trust me, investors, I could get this back on track. But he had lost so much support. You got to remember that before this whole thing broke, before all of this bad Blizzard news broke, he managed to survive being the CEO by 4 to 8% of the vote. Like, that's how much he survived his last vote. The next vote wasn't going to go his way. He was going to lose that for sure. So yeah, I think. Yeah, so I'm not saying that this game is going to be good, but from everything I've heard on the inside, I think this game is good. And right now, I've been talking to some people. If you can get in Blizzard right now, like today, if you can apply and get accepted into a position, it's going to be a good place to get into, because there's a good chance that you're going to get a little bit better of a paycheck than what you had gotten if you tried to get in the same positions about a year ago. On top of that, you're potentially going to get bought out. Like, you're potentially when Microsoft comes in, you're going to get a pay raise. There's a good potential there, or you'll be able to leave with a decent severance and find a new job elsewhere when the buyout does happen, if they have some cutbacks or something like that. Like, if you can pop in here without having to move, or without having to invest in that change of scenery and that change of place, if you can just get in, it's actually a really good time to get into them, because it's kind of like buying into a company when the profit is low, but you expect them to go high or stay where they are, or you could just jump ship for nothing basically down the road if it continues to get worse. So yeah, so I think this is interesting, and I think this is something to keep your eyes on. And I think the survival genre is something to kind of keep your eyes on even more so, because again, nobody's managed to pull off this amazing AAA experience with survival games. And I from what I'm hearing, this might be something to keep your eye on. Not a promise, but maybe something good.
Okay. You are listening to the Augmented Reality Podcast. Thanks for being so active in the live chat. Due to the Discord problems, I think we have a lower volume of live watchers today, but that's okay. Thank you to those of you who are here and watching live, and for those of you who are catching the show after the fact, appreciate you listening as well. Please leave your comments below. Slam that like button, and also if you are new to the community, if you're new to the Triple S League, actually, check out our Discord community. You can find the description the link in the description below. You can also find a link to our main channel, the Triple S League, where you can find game guides, reviews, including reviews for games like Star Wars Rogue Squadron and Jedi Fallen Order, and all kinds of other content. Some comedy, some other. There's a variety of content over there, and then here on Triple S Podcasts, you'll find the news and live podcasts, things like that. We have this podcast, Augmented Reality, and then on Saturdays, Sybe and Max Darrett do Maximum News. So you can get your gaming news twice a week here, long form news podcasts right here on Triple S Podcasts. All right. So, speaking of Star Wars games, we've got a bunch of them coming up, and so yeah, as Funky just said in the chat, Funky would argue that Rogue Squadron and Jedi Fallen Order would have saved EA, and I would say they definitely were not. They definitely didn't hurt. They definitely didn't hurt. They definitely kind of were a turning point, especially I think they were a turning point for EA, and they were a turning point for Star Wars games. And what Respawn did with Jedi Fallen Order was really good.
I still believe that EA sabotaged their Star Wars games intentionally because they didn't own the license. They only were like sitting on it. I think they decided they made that stupid phone game, which rakes in a lot of money for basically no investment. And they made a bunch of crappy other games until they got to the point where, like, you know, their other IPs were doing good, and they were like, you know, their pocketbooks weren't keeping, you know, weren't producing as much as they wanted. That's when they made, you know, that's when they made the other games, the last two. I still think some people call me conspiratorial on that. Like, it's like if you're the best cake maker in town and you're making the best vanilla cake there is, and some guy comes up to you and it's like, I've got a recipe for I'm going into Irish accent. German chocolate cake. So there's a German who shows up at your shop and he's like, hello, I hear you make the best vanilla cakes in the whole world. Well, I have this new thing. It's called a devil's German chocolate cake. It's very popular in my area. You might want to sell it here. So I'll let you use the recipe for 10 years. And if whatever kind of, you know, bonus you get, then that's good. And you're like, okay. Then you realize that you only own the license for 10 years. And if chocolate cake becomes the next big thing and removes your vanilla cake from the equation, in 10 years, you're out of a job. So what do? You make really bad cake. You make really bad German chocolate cake by throwing in some carrots and some really like bitter nuts and, you know, some other stuff that just, you know, doesn't make it that good. Like, sure, it's good. You know, people come to your shop because they're like, oh, I've heard there's a new cake. Ah, yes, there's a German chocolate cake over there. And over here we have the best vanilla cake in the world. It's French. It's great. And then the people are like, oh, okay, well, I'll try, you know, and the German cake's good, but, you know, I'll get a whole cake. I'll buy a whole cake of your vanilla, please. I think that's what happened. And right. I think it wasn't until, you know, somebody came in and said, you know, this whole French vanilla cake is kind of, you know, great. You should try this vanilla bean cake, which is so much better. Oh my God, you guys could try that. That's when they said, oh, hey, we have a new German chocolate cake and it's even better than before. You know, that's what happened. I swear that's what happened. It makes the most sense. It connects in with what I've heard internally. It just makes sense. So,
but then they had Respawn come along and say, "Yeah, screw you. We're making a good Star Wars game. We're not putting in your crap, and we're not using Frostbite."
Yeah,
and
because they made Valorant,
engine.
and they managed to get Valorant to be quite the success. So
yeah, and so then they made
not Valorant, Apex Legends. Sorry, I'm
yeah.
mixing
Well,
up
that came out after
games.
though, didn't it? Did Apex Legends come out before Star Wars Jedi?
Yeah, because so again, not Valorant, because that's right. Apex Legends came out before this, and it came out with no fanfare at all. It just released.
Yeah.
And a bunch of these streamers were suddenly playing it and going, "Oh my god, this is the greatest game ever!" And then all these reports came in and again, these were false. They said, "How do we sell this game?" And a bunch of analysts said, "Don't advertise it at all. You have a crap reputation. People will mock you. They'll think you're insane. They'll meme on you trying to get in on the Fortnite thing. Just put it out and hire a bunch of streamers to stream it and talk about how great it is. Do no other internal advertising at all." And then they were like, "Okay, that sounds like a good idea." And then in one of their press releases, or in one of the ways that one of the leaders talked, he said, "Yeah, we gave Respawn the ability to do whatever they wanted," which was a lie. They said, make a game that can compete with Fortnite, and then make it have lots of microtransactions. Maybe not initially, but later on.
Yeah.
And Respawn said, "Oh, okay," and then they did it, and it was good. And then Respawn came out and said, "When you told a bunch of these gaming presses and outlets that you guys just let us do our own thing, well, we're going to do that now. We're going to make this game that we call Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order."
Right. Yeah, that's right. I remember now. Yeah, that we did a whole video on this. We did a whole video on this.
Yeah, and the boss looked at him and said, No, you can't do that. We have a particular plan with this." And they're like, "Well, sorry, you said you gave us autonomy, so we're just going to do what we want." "Well, okay, but you have to use our engine." No, we're not using your crap engine. And so that's what happened there. So yeah.
Right on. And we got a pretty good game, as I have reviewed Jedi Fallen Order on on the main channel, and my assessment was that it was a very safe game. It didn't take a lot of risks, but it was really, really good. It was,
because it had good gameplay. Oh my goodness,
it had really good gameplay, and I know I said at the time, like, if they could take it for the sequel. First of all, hopefully that at the time I said, hopefully there will be a sequel, and that they go even more further with it, that they bring in some of the, some of the aspects from the excellent Jedi Knight series, the former Jedi Knight series of games, and, take some more risks and push the boundaries a little bit. This game, number one was good. Number two could be absolutely magnificent. And we are getting a sequel. That is one of the upcoming Star Wars games, so there's a whole bunch of Star Wars games coming up, and they're not all from EA anymore. They're EA does not have exclusive license to Star Wars games anymore. But they announced 3 of them, and all of them are being made by or are connected to Respawn. So obviously Respawn did something right, and that's being recognized, and they're being given a whole lot of Star Wars, which is hence the thumbnail for today. They're Galactic. They've basically taken over Star Wars within EA. So, IX says, "I hope the sequel feels less floaty." I mean, yeah, arguably. I mean, it was not. There were improvements that could be made, but overall, I thought it was a fantastic game. I thoroughly enjoyed playing it, and I've wanted to go back and play it again. Just there's too many things to play. But
one of our favorite games just was it had so much potential, and then they just dropped it, and that was the whole Jedi Knight Academy series. Like, Ash and I would play this for hours and hours and hours together, And it was one of the first like really amazing like online games that we played together a lot. And man, it's like so much potential there got just wasted by Lucas not knowing what to do with that and not knowing how to chase it properly.
Mm-hmm.
So sad.
Well, and it's nice to see a resurgence in Star Wars now. I mean, despite the, as old school Star Wars fans, as Saib and I and Moon, I actually don't know. Were you an old school Star Wars geek, or are you even a Star Wars fan?
That was one of the IPs I didn't actually really get into. Like, I knew of it, like I've watched it. I did have a box VHS set at one point, and like I remember watching it, but like I didn't get super into it.
Okay, fair. But Saib and I were old school, and I mean the original movies they came out before we were born. We're not that old, but they were really, really good, and it's I won't go too deep into it, but I mean it's sad what how Disney kind of trashed on it in the sequel trilogy. But there's lots of good Star Wars content coming out, and Jedi Fallen Order was one of them, and so hopefully the sequel, which is one of the games that has been announced this month, hopefully will be just as good, if not better. Then they're also making a Star Wars FPS. This is Respawn again, announced alongside the Jedi sequel. We don't know much about it, but there's a Star Wars FPS coming. And then this article lists a few from some other studios, including Lego Star Wars, Bit Reactor's Star Wars strategy game. This is the other one it's being built in conjunction with Respawn.
Yeah.
So they're connected to it. They're not doing exclusive development on it, but some kind of a strategy game. So those are the three from EA/Respawn. By the way, we're going to have to restart the call in 2 minutes. I don't know if you see the notification there. It's going to cut us off. But anyway, then we have Star Wars Eclipse coming from Quantic Dream, the developers of Heavy Rain, Detroit Become Human, games like that. So that could be an interesting, different kind of Star Wars game. Knights of the Old Republic remake, of course, we've mentioned before. Star Wars Hunters, which is, it's going to be on mobile and Nintendo Switch. So hopefully it's not some crap Pokemon clone with microtransactions and predatory mechanics. But I'm not holding my breath. So third-person arena arcade game of some kind, and then Ubisoft also has a Star Wars game in production. We know very little about it.
So let me get this straight. Google's response to Discord and TeamSpeak and what's the one that everybody uses now that gets hacked so easily?
Zoom
was to
You're about to disappear.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, it just ended. So I'm gonna have to restart the call with my co-hosts there. So hopefully Sai will send me the re-invite right away here. But anyway, there it is. As a matter of fact, so I'll just join that. But anyway, while I'm waiting for you're back already. Okay, that was quicker than I thought.
So Google in their wisdom decided that the best way to compete against Zoom was to put a time limit on their stuff and make it like really bad and reduce the options on it. Good. See, and again, this was what I was.
They put a price tag on it, basically.
Yeah. This is what I was just telling Funky in the chat here, is that this is the reason why I don't fear these megacorps taking this stuff over as much. Like, it's still something that's very worrisome and very concerning, obviously, very problematic. However, I don't really worry about it because they're so bad at what they do. Like, these corporations are so terrible at what they do that the bigger they get, the longer they have monopoly power, the worse everything is. and the more the more their empires crumble around them, and the more they quickly try and like grab and hold on to the sand and squeeze the sand as tight as they can. It's like you guys are pathetic. Like, you truly are some of the worst, most pathetic idiots out there when it comes to actually making this stuff function. Like, oh Lord, it's so bad.
Yeah. Anyway, so lots of Star Wars coming out, and lots of Star Wars TV as well.
I wasn't going to talk about this, but the Italian Senate got trolled by Tifa from Final Fantasy in a not a family-friendly way at all. And good Lord, oh my God, so funny. One of the lawmakers starts screaming about how you're going to be a section. What do you say? So the broadcast gets hijacked, and it's not just hijacked on the stream; it's hijacked on like their version of C-SPAN, and this one politician's threatening the 3D person, you know, saying that they're gonna have a record, and people will find out who they are. And it's most people already know who that is. That's Tifa Lockhart from Final Fantasy. Also, she's not a real person, you dumbass.
Well, maybe he...
So yeah, mega corporations and governments, you don't have too much to fear from them. They're generally incompetent.
That doesn't necessarily mean you don't have too much to fear.
Well, I mean, yeah, you have a lot to fear from them. I mean, they did kill more people in the last century than any other source combined. But yeah, I mean, aside from natural death. But yeah, it's like, yeah, these people are genuinely incompetent, so you don't have to worry that much.
Fair enough. Anyway, lots of Star Wars coming in.
Yeah.
You know, I like this a lot, and I especially in the context of I've been watching the Boba Fett show, and no, there will not be any spoilers here, but I'm really enjoying it. I've been reading these articles criticizing it, and it feels like they're being really nitpicky.
Oh, they are, and that's part of the problem on being on the hate bandwagon, is that you get, if you spend too much time jumping on the hate bandwagon, like a certain somebody that we know, eventually you just end up sitting back and nitpicking small things over and 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 over again, and you make 15-minute videos on why you don't think one thing in the show is good, because, and the whole show is going to crash and burn because you didn't like one thing that was just ever so slightly like out of sync with what you thought would be the better thing. And it's like, at some point you got to realize when the hatred is when you've taken too far. And so that's why it's good to always make sure that you're not embracing too much of the hate, and you're learning to live and let live.
Right. I'm actually just curious how it's doing in terms of user ratings. But yeah, I was reading this one article where it was like, the problem with this show is that it's only from Boba Fett's perspective. And they went on for pages about how it would have benefited from, other, perspectives from other characters. I mean, it's called The Book of Boba Fett. It's almost his diary. That's what, and you're surprised that it's only from Boba Fett's perspective. Anyway. Oh, it's not doing too. User score 5.2 on Metacritic. Okay, so not great. I would have rated it much higher than that. Obviously, not everybody's cup of tea.
Rotten Tomatoes has an audience score at 60%. However, you can't trust Rotten Tomatoes anymore because they've banned just enormous amounts of people. I think I think somebody said that the Rotten Tomatoes banned about like 80% of their normal audience.
Oof.
So that's a lot of opinions that are no longer present in their category.
And honestly, I don't care. Like, honestly, I think it doesn't bother me that there are people that don't like this show. As a matter of fact, I can see why a lot of people might not like it. It's a bit of a slower pace. It's obviously lower budget, and it's more of a character drama. It's more of a focus on a particular character. There is some cool action and some cool stuff and some real. If you're a fan of old school original trilogy Star Wars, then the setting, like, it's a really it's true to that setting. I mean, it starts with, I don't think this is too much of a spoiler. Obviously, he got out of the Sarlacc pit somehow. That's how the show starts. And then it carries on to, what happened to him after that. And it's just completely true to that setting. It's like you're watching the old movies again in some ways, just, better graphics and stuff, right? Obviously lower budget, but so it's...
Remember that scene where he gets sucked into the Sarlacc pit, and then he's like, he's telling the other guy who's also in there about like how he totally, like, he totally killed Han Solo and Luke Skywalker and he made out with Princess Leia and then he starts crying.
I do not remember that. I think you're thinking of something else.
Oh no, sorry, that was on Robot Chicken.
I kind of figured it would be something like that. The Robot Chicken Star Wars is pretty funny as well. But yeah, so more Star Wars TV coming as well. Mandalorian season 3, Obi-Wan Kenobi TV series. Hopefully, I imagine that's going to be quite a spectacle.
Yeah, it's gonna be really good. I'm gonna really love season 1 where he he lives on Tatooine. He lives on Tatooine, and he starts picking up walking around in his robe and watching Luke as a kid, and then season 2 where he's getting a little older and he's walking around on Tatooine and he's watching Luke as a kid, and then season 3 gets really exciting when Luke, is a kid and he's sitting there watching him and making sure that he's okay. And yeah, it's going to be great.
I'm sure there's going to be...
I'm so looking forward to it, man. It's going to be great.
You really don't think they're going to make it interesting?
Oh, no, I think they're going to make it interesting. It's just going to lead to a lot of questions of like, wait a minute, if Obi-Wan Kenobi was doing this over here, why didn't anybody hear about it? That kind of stuff. And I mean, okay, I get it. But it's like,
when it comes... that's the problem with, that's the problem with prequels in general. That's the whole problem with the way Captain America's, the original, like, Steve Rogers story wrapped up. Mm-hmm. People are like, so he went and lived out his life while all this other stuff was going on.
They had the whole like Peggy Carter show, and it's like Peggy, like, she's doing all this stuff, and then she she sighs and she takes a shower at the shield thing, and then gets in her car, drives home, and is all sad walking up to the thing, and then she shuts the door, and she like, is the curtains closed? And he's like, yeah, curtains closed. Look, I made you supper tonight. She's like, yeah, supper. Thanks so much, honey. Probably could have really used your super strength when I was dealing with all those assassins today. It's like, don't worry, honey. I know you survive. It's fine. You'll do great. You do great. It's like, I started a sourdough starter today. Oh, did you? Yeah. I think I overfed it though.
Is that going to be the next Marvel series on Disney Plus? Steve Rogers, house husband.
Well, I mean, what else does he do for 50
I know, exactly,
years?
Right? Exactly. What about... We're getting way off topic. Okay, so
I'm sorry. My imagination with these TV shows has been getting a little wild recently.
I think that I think this one's largely my fault. But anyway, I'm looking forward to all the Star Wars stuff that's coming on. I mean, some of it's going to be crap. I'm sure some of it's going to be crap, but some of it hopefully will be really, really good.
Also, we did start a sub sourdough starters last week, and we've been having fun trying to experiment with them. So that was an internal joke.
Fair enough. Okay,
Because
so
like I had mine, and then Moon had hers, and we were trying to see which ones were like going right, and which ones were. And then we were trying different recipes. We're like, well, that wasn't very good. Let's try a different one. So,
all right, I don't think we have time to talk about this all that much, but Mark Dara, former Bioware employee and project lead, and like he was there for a long time. He worked on a whole ton of games, all the way from Baldur's Gate back in 1998, all the way up to Anthem in 2019, and everything in between: Dragon Age, Mass Effect. By the way, did you remember that our very first augmented reality podcast was about Mass Effect Andromeda? I always forgotten that game existed, and then I was thinking back today. I was like, oh yeah, that was our first ever AR branded podcast. Was about Andromeda. Anyway,
I was so excited for that game when it was first announced. I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting.
I think that's where the downfall. That's where it started. The downturn in as far as hype fatigue. I would say, as far as I'm concerned, that
progressively got
by,
worse,
and then it just hit an apex with Cyberpunk, and then it was just screw it. Not getting hyped anymore. Not getting hyped. And so I didn't for Halo Infinite, and it paid off. It's a game I'm thoroughly enjoying, and it is really good, and I'm glad they gave it the extra time they needed, but I didn't spend a year obsessing about it. All right. Anyway, so Mark Dara put out a video on his channel, which is called Old Game Dev Advice. So he's got a channel where he talks about his experience developing games, and he put out a video basically trashing Bioware Magic. And by Bioware Magic, well, he kind of he explained what he meant by Bioware Magic, and it's not something that just takes place at Bioware. Basically, it was a name given to
it's a real effect. It's called the hockey stick effect, and it happens in large companies when they're making large games. And that is that they start out creating a ton of like small things and small things and small things and small things, and they can't tell you when the game's going to be ready. They can't tell you by what date it's going to be ready, but they keep on growing the things, and then there's a sudden like spike of like everything starting to come together.
That's this line graph that you see on the screen here. He called it the hockey stick. So things progress slowly, and suddenly it shoots upwards. The game becomes ready to ship, but everything.
Now, as far as big games go, I think this is actually, it's not as bad as he makes it out to be. It's not the best way to produce games, but it's not inherently evil. It's when there's two things that mess this up. One is a production deadline that not everybody working on the product either knows or understands or has the ability to like actually aim for. It's like hitting a moving target. It's a lot harder to do that. And then the other thing is when you have leaders who come in and constantly remove stuff. So so imagine that line, but and the top end of that line on the right being like that's your ship date, and that's when everything has to come together. And instead of having an actual line that goes from where it starts up to that point in a straight line, which is you can track progress every way, that would be the problem with like the whole like time, like saying this has to be ready by fall 2023. This has to be ready by fall 2023. But yet nobody in the team actually knows how to make that happen. And so you end up getting like a whole bunch of overshoots and undershoots and all this other stuff. The other problem is that when leaders come in and constantly remove progress, and this is what happened in Cyberpunk. They came in, they were working on, feature C, D, and E, and they removed C and E. And then that ended up making E also, E and F also fall through the wayside because they overshot what they thought they could do, and then they start chipping away at it, which ends up like messing how the whole line goes.
But that's
And
part
then
of the
you have to
problem
restart
too,
on
right?
things.
Is that they say, okay, we want features A through G,
Yeah.
but realistically they can't implement all of that. And
Yeah.
so then they have to remove some of it in order to make their ship date. And that just really throws things off. But yeah, I see what you're saying there. But Mark's argument in the video is that there's a lack of completion urgency from early on. Like basically it's kind of this meandering accumulation of stuff. Stuff's being worked on, stuff is being accumulated but not completed all the way through, this first large chunk of the production, and it just there's no end goal. There's no completed state in sight for a long time. They just don't know exactly what they're building. They're building stuff for it, but they don't know, is it going to be a car, or is it going to be a semi truck, or is it going to be a train? So they're building all these parts, and then it just anyway. Bioware Magic is the word they use to refer to this tail end of the hockey stick, where it suddenly shoots upwards and things just kind of click and come together. And he said you don't know at what point along the line this is going to happen. But it's also true that this is not just a Bioware thing. This is something that happens at a lot of studios. It's just at Bioware they put this spin on it and called it Bioware Magic. And he said he's pretty sure he remembers somebody using the term in reference to Anthem. That Anthem would be saved by Bioware Magic, I guess. That didn't happen.
No. And you're right. There's a lot of problems with this, and it comes down to structure. And again, this isn't the worst thing. I mean, Mass Effect 1 and 2 were made this way. A bunch of other games were made this way. And when you don't have a crushing deadline, but you do have this overall system where you are going up every week, you are gaining something, whether it's a system, something to do with gameplay, something to do with the visuals, something to do with the audios. It's like every week you have progress. Hey, this is up, this is up, this is up. Great, cool. Next week, this is up, this is up, this is up, this is up, and this is up. Great, cool. As long as you have that, and not so we had to scrap this, which made us also scrap this, which made us also scrap that, which made the leader stand up and say, we're going to reinvent the wheel again. I want you guys to go back to basics on this, and we're going to redesign it from the ground up. Sir, we've already redesigned that aspect 5 times. Well, redesign it again.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's consuming our time. We can't do this. We have to ship in a year. Do it again. It's going to be great.
Yeah, we just hired a Hollywood celebrity, and so now the story has to focus on him. So do it.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
Yeah, do it.
Completely
Make it
change
happen
the
again.
genre of the game.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, so yes, management problems definitely factor into that for sure.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. I would recommend checking out his video on it at Old Game Dev Advice if you're interested in this kind of stuff, and what Bioware Magic actually was, and why it's actually a problem and not a good thing. Okay.
I know a dev who's working on a really great game right now, which I can't talk about. And he has this theory when it comes to producing games, and he's got this really long how-to guide on how to make games, and it's you develop this this set of goals that you have, and you time out how much you think it's going to hit for you to hit each of those goals, and then you have a stretch period after the project in which you do additional things that you couldn't do in the first little while. And it's a really brilliant goal and a really brilliant plan on how to do that. And this goes all the way back to our first conversation, where it's indie devs get this stuff. Small studios of 10, 15 people working on these projects that's started in somebody's garage and has now moved out because they're pulling in the support because they can now showcase that they're actually doing stuff and they're actually coming up with good content. They're actually maintaining everything. It's like that is the best thing you can do, is learn how to do that and do that well. And it's if you can do that, then you'll save yourself so much frustration and anguish trying to do everything else. So yeah.
Yes. Also, and I mean, we talked about this last week, I think, game development and game design, or having the vision for a game and being that creative aspect is a different skill set from project management. And so sometimes they'll put the creative person in charge, as the manager of the project, who they don't have the skills to actually make it happen within the constraints of time and budget, and that can be a problem. You need to have both of those in place. Now it's different when you're a one-person indie studio. You're doing everything, but you only have to manage yourself, so it's easier in that sense. But anyway, we'll move on to our final topic here, which is more of a discussion piece, because this is kind of going to be more of an opinion / discussion topic, because it's hard to say there's like a right or wrong answer here. There's maybe a smart versus dumb answer or response, but like how should big companies respond to fan projects? And we see a variety of responses in and amongst the gaming space. Some companies very, very strict in protecting their IPs, and some companies and developers are like, run rampant. We had Scott Cawthon, before he disappeared for reasons we won't get into. He was basically all in on promoting and supporting Five Nights at Freddy's fan games. And that was really cool to see. We tried to get in touch with him we invited him to be part of the podcast, but he's very reclusive. So he never wrote back. But anyway, and this was before the whole controversy. But of course, you got companies like Nintendo that protect their IPs with prejudice. And recently we had them scrub this, as it says here, Nintendo scrubs Pokemon FPS videos from the internet. So somebody made this fan game of basically, I guess, an FPS where you go around and shoot Pokemon. So a little fan project
with blood and gore.
With blood and gore. And
wow.
Now Nintendo has a new Pokemon game coming out in a few days. And so I can see why they'd want to maybe remove that stuff from the internet. Now, does that make it right? Well, I mean, that's the question that's up for discussion. So a fan game like this, should it be allowed to exist? Should companies, even if they have the legal right to take it down, is it smart to? Saib, you were saying that you thought it would have been better for their business if they had let these videos continue to exist.
Well, so I mean, just in general, it's like these big companies don't know squat when it comes to like embracing certain aspects of their community. One of the smartest business moves they could have done was to like in the last like 3 years would have been to make the browser princess, Bowsette, to make Bowsette an actual thing. Like if they had done that, they probably could have easily made a couple $100 million off of that.
That could have been hilarious.
You could have made your own game. You could have had like so many skins. You could have sold. I mean, just the dolls themselves, just the plastic like little figurines probably would have netted them $100 million. Like honestly. And then it's also that you risk inflating something when you try and like burn it down. The what's that singer from the 70s?
Oh yeah, I know what you're saying. The Streisand effect. Yeah. So yeah, a lot more people have heard of this because it made news now.
Yeah. So instead of it being a small thing that only a few people were interested in, they come out and they announce, and just like Blizzard did with Overwatch, they come out onto the center stage, they tap the microphone. Hello, everybody. Hello. All right. I know that only a handful of you have heard about this. Literally only about 3 people have mentioned this to me in the last like 2 weeks. However, our recent game for Overwatch has been garnering just massive amounts of attention. But there's also been several sandwich making videos that have come out. Really, really highly detailed, 2K graphics with ultra, like these animations that you would not believe unless you saw it. Just this intense sandwich making sessions with Tracer and Widowmaker having both a car and a garage and a trailer extension on the car being added to their characters for the sandwich making. We want you to know that we don't like this and that we are stamping this out everywhere that we can. Now the prawn hub's main source of prawns and their distribution for sandwich making, they have not responded to us, but I want you to know that as soon as they do, those videos are going to be gone from there. And everybody pulls out their phone and is like,
nobody go look at these in the meantime.
What was the title of this thing called again?
What did you
Oh,
say
never mind. I found it. Just just search Overwatch in the
Overwatch
thing.
sandwich making. Yeah,
sandwich making. It's right there. Oh my goodness. Is that Tracer? And oh my goodness, look at the detail on this. It's like, did you secretly have stock in this? It's like these people don't know how to if you want something to die, you just go after it on the side very subtly. Every time somebody's just making money off of it, you close them down for that. You don't make a big announcement about how you're gonna stamp this out because you're a moral, upright person. Which, I mean, this actually comes off as even funnier now in a really sad and despicable way. I want you to
Blizzard,
understand.
yeah.
I'm not making light of victims right now. It's just the irony of this is even more disgusting when you look back on this now, going, oh, okay, so you didn't want you didn't want Widowmaker to grab Tracer's butt and give it a good slap and and push her against the wall. That's reserved for your C-level employees to do to not employees but like management to do to your low-level employees, right?
Yeah,
gotcha.
Slow
Okay,
clap.
that's what we're supposed to do.
Sure.
Okay, I got you. You hypocritical pieces of garbage. It's like
IX says, how many copies do you think Resident Evil 8 sold because of Dimitrescu? Hot damn, that was some clever marketing, if that was intended. Like, yeah,
I don't think it was necessarily intended. The Japanese always come up with really weird monster variant types, and I think it just kind of like they're like, oh, tall like lady. I don't think somebody with a particular proclivity to making that kind of sandwiches, I don't think they were involved in that.
I'm not saying that it was. Yeah, I'm not saying it was made as like any kind of a sandwich oriented idea in mind when they designed the character. Obviously,
but if this had been like if this had been some of the companies that we've been seeing recently, if they were in charge of this, they probably would have walked up and said, you know what, we just can't allow this, so we're just going to remove this character from the game, and shame on you, internet.
Yeah, make her a dilapidated old hag.
Yeah, they probably again, certain companies probably would have done that.
But they yeah, I mean they obviously went Dimitrescu, obviously some sandwich appeal there. Like they clearly went for that. But that they released that part of the game as a demo, and everyone went crazy over that character, and they didn't try to stamp it out. They weren't going around saying, "Oh, you can't copyright strike." We have some Dimitrescu parody on our main channel. You should check it out. It's a very funny short video. It's only a minute long, but I think it's very funny. And maybe I'm biased because I wrote it, but but everyone who read it thought it was funny. Anyway, so Funky says the Sandwich Hub Pokemon section has not been taken down. Oh, is that right? How do you know that, Funky? Huh, interesting. But okay, so getting back to this, we're running out of time, so we kind of got to hurry along. But yeah, what should Nintendo's response be in this case? Because I understand. First of all, this isn't a game that I don't think the developers of this game are going to try to sell it, or whoever's making this game, this fan project, FPS shooting Pokemon. I don't think they were going to try to sell it. I don't think that was the issue.
Be funny? The best thing that they could do with this would be to make a COD or like some kind of like big variant like shooter where all of the characters are Pokemon.
Make a mod for it, yeah.
You make you make a full game and then you ship the game, and it's just COD with a Pokemon skin, and then you put in like a small, and you put in a small campaign where it's a bunch of Pokemon starting, and then they like escalate because of some random thing that one of them does that the other ones get upset with, and they're like, you can't do that, and then and they all like go to war over this, and then at the end of the campaign, it's just a fever dream from one of the Pokemon, and all the other Pokemon are just standing over him like, you okay there, buddy? And like one of the big bads of the other side in the campaign, he's the first one to kind of wake you up and be like, dude, you fell from the tree, you hit your head, are you okay? You know, they don't talk, but you know, that would be kind of like what he's like making those like hand signs or whatever, and like patting them gently, like, here's a berry or a grape or something. I don't know what they eat. and it's like, it would just be that. So it's like a fever dream thing. And I guarantee you that probably, like, if the gunplay was good and like the FPS was like engaging, I guarantee you that probably could have easily sold like, I don't know, like 5 million copies of that.
Sure, but they do have an image when it comes to their IP though. Like they have
well, not keep the blood and gore, but just the general like shooty shoot, right?
Fair
it's
enough.
Like, and as far as an
Like
image,
shoot Pokemon
don't give me that stuff. Have you seen the types of games that Nintendo is selling in right now? Yeah,
but not in their foundation, like their pillar core.
Yes, yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Well, I mean, not like the Pokemon and the Mario and
yeah. No, not those, but
they're selling third-party games that, or maybe first-party. But I'm just saying, you're not going to. They're not going to put out a Mario game that has Mario and the princess getting it on making sandwiches, or that has like super hardcore blood and gore when you squash the Goomba and its internal organs burst out or something like that. They're not going to do that because they have this image to uphold with that. And so I kind of see I see why they didn't like this, especially given the timing that they've got a new Pokemon game coming out in a few days, and people searching new Pokemon game and seeing this, blood and gore first-person shooter, like it could cause some marketing confusion. So I see where they're coming from with that. But at the same time, would it have been better to just laugh it off and be like, okay, yeah, this is...
It would have been better to laugh it off.
Yeah, I mean, because then it just... this really does just kind of reinforce their stereotype as of being just really not a lot of fun.
No.
But fan projects, it's a dicey thing because they do to some extent have to protect their IP, right? And for example, there's a project in the works right now called Mario Multiverse. It's a fan project being made by one guy, and it is basically it's a level making game that is it's being tightly controlled. It's in like beta right now, but a few of the big Mario streamers have been able to take part in it, and it's like Mario Maker but with way more stuff in it. And so these people are the Mario community is loving it, is eating it up. because it's what they thought the Mario Maker should be. And I know this guy, I mean, guaranteed Nintendo's not going to let that continue to exist if there's anything they can do about it. Because it would threaten the sales of their actual Mario Maker games.
Maybe I spoke too soon. Titans in the chat brought up that there is a game basically like I described. It's called Pal World, and it's got some freaky, crazy, nightmare fuel stuff combined with some shooter stuff and some other things, and it's some pretty messed up stuff about it.
Yeah. Fair enough. But yeah, it's like when this, just going back to what I was saying before, when this Mario Multiverse thing goes fully open live, whenever the developer, who I think is in Korea or Japan or somewhere, when they put this out as an open thing, not just this closed beta that it's in right now, I'm sure Nintendo's going to try to destroy it. I don't want to see that happen because it is a fan of the IP, obviously, who has spent years working on this, and it's something that the community is enjoying. But at the same time, what else is Nintendo supposed to do? Like, they can't just condone this existing, right? You see where I'm having the conundrum there?
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know what the right answer is entirely. I would love for every company to take the Scott Cawthon approach and say, yeah, you love the IP that I created, go ahead and make fan projects. Don't sell them, but go ahead and make them, right? But at the same time, if every big company did that, then there could potentially be zillions of games that are better than the ones that the companies actually themselves made, and that could be a big problem for these companies, right? So
this PALS game is coming to Steam, and it says, labor laws won't be applied to PALs. Feel free to work them into the ground. Build a factory and place PALs in it. They will work forever as long as they're fed, or until the end of their lifetime, or until they're beaten to a pulp by the factory boss. Hire the meaner factory boss, and the quicker results you get. Oh, okay, yeah. So PALs, Nightmare Dystopia with Pokemon. No, I wouldn't.
I'm looking at pictures of the creatures. They're very cute.
They are very cute, but they are reenacting several scenes from World War II that probably are not, non-combat scenes. So.
Oh no! Oh no!
Such as factory stuff and experimentation. Yeah, so probably not.
Yeah, maybe not. We'll check it out later.
So yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, it's a dicey situation, and I don't know how long I was muted there. I hope that you were talking for a whole bunch of time while I was muted. Anyway, that is all the time we have for today. We got to wrap this up, but thank you everybody. Please do put your opinions about fan projects and how you think companies should respond to them in the live chat, or if you're listening after the fact, put them in the comments down below, and we look forward to reading them. Check out the Discord server. You can find the link to that in the description below. It's a great place where you can find people of like-minded interests and have some great conversations, and also stay up to date about everything we're doing here at the Triple S League. Subscribe here on Triple S Podcasts and over on the Triple S League channel, and of course, slam that like button. Really appreciate that. Thank you to all our Patreon supporters and channel members. All of those folks, you've seen their names appearing on the top of the screen throughout the show today. Really appreciate all of you folks. We are humbled by your desire to support us the ways you do, so thank you so much. And on behalf of Sybe and Moontag, this has been the Augmented Reality Podcast put on by the Triple S League. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will talk to you later.